And I said, I came here today for you because you just shared that with me. You're the reason I came here. Nothing else matters, because if I made a difference in your life, then this entire talk was worth it. That one person.
What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the #1 mental health and addiction podcast, the Hopeaholics. I am your girl, Natalie Eva Marie, and these are my boys.
I'm Chad.
Hi, I'm Shane.
Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and follow us on our socials and wherever you get your podcasts.
Got a new episode dropping every Monday and Thursday. Please come check it out.
This episode is brought to you by the Infinity Group. You guys, if you or a loved one is suffering, please call us today. The number is right here on the screen. We are here for you 24/7. Now, let's get into the episode.
Richard's a fellow Jewish guy. I just want to put that out there right now.
Okay.
So you're in heaven right now?
I'm in heaven right now. Yeah, this is our
Jews
side.
don't believe in heaven.
We don't.
Oh,
we
they don't?
What
what do you
is
believe
it
in?
believe in?
It's hard to explain.
It's
I never
like-
get a right answer from a rabbi. Every time I ask one of my rabbis, I say, is there a heaven? He goes, yes. I go, is there a hell? He goes, no.
See?
I was like, then how can you have a heaven without a hell? Well, it's a heven, but not like what you think. You
And
never get
everyone
a straight
goes,
answer from
there's
a
no-
rabbi.
That's what I've explained. That they say, how about Hitler? I said, there's no hell.
You know what?
Hitler.
Google Family Guy and Jews in Heaven. There's a great skit by Peter Griffin on a rabbi doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Like literally, you never get a straight answer from a
Yeah.
rabbi when you ask about heaven or hell. When you ask about the devil, you ask about afterlife, anything like that. I can't get a straight answer.
Oh no, I'm not going to go into this right now because we can go off. We can go off air afterwards.
Yeah.
I have a couple of Jewish questions that.
I don't answer.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Richard, I'm wondering. You've been around. I read your life. We talked a little bit. What was, if there's a day in your life that was the most tragic that brought you to your knees? What was that experience?
That's easy for me. It would be May 14th, 2007. Actually, May 15th. It was the day after Mother's Day, and I was leaving for work. And on that day, I opened my front door. I went to my car, Toyota Camry, and I hit the button. And then quiet cul-de-sac street, and I hear Dr. Morgan. I turn around. 3 black SUVs pull up behind me. One guy, eight federal agents get out of the car, throw me against my Toyota Camry, start handcuffing me, telling me I'm under arrest. I have no idea what's happening. I see my wife at the time standing by the door with my 1.5-year-old daughter. And they go, do you have any guns in the house? And I said, no. They said, do you have any prescriptions in the house? I said, yes. They went in, they got the prescriptions, they took out 3 boxes of them, every prescription I ever owned, because back then they were paper. And they put me in the back of the SUV, read me my rights, and that began the rest of my life.
Oh my goodness.
And I kept saying to myself that day, how does a respected doctor, father, and husband in living just a simple life end up getting arrested by the federal agents 10 years to the day, almost to the day after my first pill. Never drank, never drank in high school. I was a fuddy-duddy total nerd. I hung out with the nerds and the geeks. And then literally 10 years, almost to the day of the very first time I took a pill from an illness, I was arrested by the feds. And that was that day.
On what?
Conspiracy to distribute OxyContin.
So you were giving him out to patients?
Yes, I was giving him and selling prescriptions to feed my own habit.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
My habit started, the nidus of it was 10 years before when I was prescribed them for wisdom tooth extraction. That led to serious complications. They prescribed me Vicodin. Never took a pill in my life. The last time I took any pill was when I was 3 years old for a middle ear infection, and my mom tried to slip an antibiotic into the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I ended up throwing it up because she tricked me, and I gagged so much to this day. Not only did I hate pills at the time, but I never eat peanut butter again.
Oh man.
So you can imagine it was a really harrowing experience because I didn't even want to take the pills when I had the wisdom teeth extracted and developed the abscess in my mouth, and the doctor said you're going to need them. And those dentists, those oral surgeons, love to push that stuff. And at the time, I didn't know. Ever since I started sharing my story, and I talk a lot about it, I had dentists and oral surgeons coming up to me all the time, and they're saying, you know what, if I had $1 every time that I heard about a dentist's causing an addiction, I'd be a very rich dentist. It's scary, and I'm not trying to stigmatize dentists. I mean, there's a lot of great ones out there, but they believe that the primary mode of original distribution of opiates was through oral surgery and dentistry, and they were prescribing them very willy-nilly, and that's really where my whole story began from this perspective.
When did it dawn on you that you actually had like a severe problem prior, obviously, to like you selling? You being a doctor is one thing, and the other element is that you're now selling your writing prescriptions and making, like, you're basically selling legalized.
Yeah,
drugs.
well, it's all in the timing. So when I started my first pill, I was a medical student. I was a third-year medical student, so I knew nothing about it. I had still not even learned much about opiates. So I followed the protocol. I took the pills as prescribed, and then, it wasn't right away until later on, through starting as my third and fourth year of medical school, where it started to progress. And then I realized I can't even specify a time in my story. I talk a lot about gray areas, watershed areas where I had made a choice that was bad, but gray areas where, like, I can't always recall the exact moment when something happened, but I recall the feeling that I had, like the feeling when I had that first pill, the feeling of the very first Oxy. Those types of things I never forget, and it's so powerful to me that that's what propels me to really be motivated to do what I'm doing, because, man, those feelings at the time were so intense and amazing and euphoric and powerful and overwhelming, and just the level of confidence and invincibility that you have on these pills blew me away. I was like, I can accomplish anything. And then I started to minimize, justify, and rationalize my use by saying, I'll just take a few on my way to work. It'll pump me up in the morning. And it did. I felt more confident at work. I felt more comfortable in social situations. And then I'd start to rationalize, I'm going to take 2 or 3 when I go out to dinner with my wife and some family friends. And I felt like I was more the life of the party. I was doing fine without this. But here I am justifying, increasing, and continuing my pill use just to say that this is what I want to do. So when it's a real evolution, Natalie, when it comes to talking about, did I know at this time? It started, as you know, it's so slow, insidious and progressive. I was way late when I realized that I was in trouble. And then another gray area I talk about is, at some point, it stops becoming a euphoric feeling, and now I'm trying to fight off the dope sickness. I'm trying to fight off and prevent the withdrawal symptoms that I would not wish on my worst enemy. So finding that balance and understanding why I did what I did. And of course, there's no excuse. I totally have accepted responsibility for everything I've done. But it's really a part of the addiction process and a part of the evolution of how, when your mind is clouded and you realize I have this incredible power to write a prescription, I said, you know what, if I'm only hurting myself, how bad could it be? And that's where it started. I started just writing prescriptions for myself. And it started really in medical school. My 4th year, and residency, my first year, I went to NYU Medical Center, and I did my residency there in physical medicine and rehabilitation. And what happened was I would write prescriptions in the hospital for patients, let's say, that were being discharged. Because back then, I could just go to the pharmacy. They're being discharged. I'll write a prescription for Vicodin, Tylenol #3. Because remember, they all had hip and knee replacements. So they're all going to go home on opiates. And then sometimes a prescription would make it upstairs. Sometimes it wouldn't. Sometimes it would, get lost on the way. And that's how I was able to slowly maintain my secret and my ability to kind of keep a safe level of, for me at the time of having pills. Because for me, it wasn't even just the high. I don't know if, I'm sure some of you can relate to this, but it was the comfort of having the pill on me, knowing that I can take it, knowing that at any moment's notice, if I get that headache, if I get that, I know, an hour or 2 before the dope sick starting, I got that pill to buy me another 4 hours. You know what I mean? So it was the fear of the consequences of not having a pill in my system that led me to have the comfort of having pills on me. And that's really where that evolution came from. And that's really where the pill selling came from. An opportunity arose. Like, I wasn't looking for it. Again, justifying, rationalizing, minimizing. I started working in a clinic where I'd go in on Fridays, and I would do nerve testing for patients with neuropathies and pinched nerves in their neck and back. And they would set up an office for me. And one day, first time this happened, this is a watershed moment, 22-year-old young kid comes in to Long Island Clinic where I'm working, and he goes, "Hey, Dr. Morgan, how are you?" I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" It's like, I was just in a car accident. My neck's really hurting. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I just wonder if you just give me some prescriptions for some painkillers, and I'll be on my way. And I said, "Well, what do you need?" He goes, "Oxy and Soma, which is a muscle relaxant." And I'm like, "You want that? I mean, that's really strong." He's like, "Listen, I know you're busy. I don't want to take your time." Kid pulls out $1,500 in cash and puts it on the table. And I said, "Are you fucking kidding me?" I said, "I'm not taking money for this." And this was just when I had never taken Oxy at this time. I was only taking Vicodins, Dilaudid, things like that, not minimizing, but I hadn't reached that level yet. And he said, "All right, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to insult you." Threw another $1,000 in cash on top. And I said to myself, as my judgment started to get clouded, I said, "Wow, I can use this money to pay for my own habit." And I said, "You know what, I'll do it this one time." And of course I made the deal with the devil, if you will.
Yep.
And that's where it started. So that's really the progression, to answer your question, of how it came from just a regular habit into a very insidious and disease-filled process.
Well, I think it's amazing. I love your story just because it really highlights the fact that this disease does not discriminate. You're a doctor.
Yes.
And you are no different than the three of us that are sitting here. Our addiction might look a little bit different. However, we have the same mechanism in our brain that justifies bad behavior, which then leads down to like a slippery slope, which then unfortunately we lie to ourselves and say that with our problem, we're only affecting ourselves. And that couldn't be more of a lie, because not only are we hurting ourselves from like emotional, spiritual, physical level, but then your loved ones, whoever is your spouse or partner or mom, dad, brother, siblings, it spills out onto them as well. And it's a thing that I think a lot of us think that just by hurting ourselves with our disease, that it's only us that we're hurting.
That's a great point, Natalie. And the first thing that came to mind when you said that was, I didn't realize I was hurting anyone because it's such a selfish illness.
Yeah.
Until the very day in April of 2006 when I came home. I had overdosed the day before. I took a ton of Oxys. I took a ton of Xanax. I actually was supposed to meet a friend at a Ranger playoff game, I'll never forget, and I ended up falling asleep on my way home. I worked in Midtown Manhattan by David Letterman's studio, and I fell asleep in a park. And when I woke up, $2,000 was stolen from my wallet, and my EMG machine I couldn't find. Because the Xanax, as I was telling Shane earlier, basically it makes you have amnesia. I literally blacked out. I didn't know what happened. So I missed the event. I missed everything. I came home. My wife was slipping out at the time, and the next day I went to work, came home, and there was an intervention.
Oh, wow.
And that day, that was in April of 2006, they put me on a plane. You're going to Florida. We got this place for you. I went to detox, and then it started my 3 or 4 month journey at that time through rehab, which I didn't get right away. In fact, I got kicked out of 2 rehabs while I was down there. So
He doesn't look like a troublemaker.
Huh?
You know what I'm saying?
But you know what?
That's what's so amazing. I agree with what you're saying. That's
it's like really
amazing.
important for everyone to hear,
Yes.
especially just because you might have a profession that others look as, prestigious, or you had to go to school for so long, and you're obviously an educated man. However, this disease is like, it's coming for anybody, all of us.
It's so true. People look at me, and when my students meet me, I love them to see me where I am now and at the place I am. And then when you peel the layers of that onion, you can look back and say, holy shit, I can't believe that you were there. You were a federal prisoner. But it's so true. And like I was just sharing in the rehab, like I go down there, I didn't get it. I literally called my patient to mail me some Oxys into the clinic from New York at one of the 3-letter pharmacies that will remain nameless. But either way, they would mail them in because they were very easy to get to. So they basically mail me the prescription. I said, mail it in a shampoo bottle. He goes, no problem. He fucking mails it in a clear travel shampoo bottle with a little baggie with like 10 pills in the bottle. I get called into the office so fast, my head spun, and they said, what the hell is this? It's like, I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm here in rehab. What are you talking about? He goes, listen, you got 2 options. I'm going to call the police or kick your ass out of here. I'm like, you can kick me out, but I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, I can't control someone's mailing. And I'm like, you freaking idiot. I'm like, you mailed them in a clear shampoo bottle. So I ended up leaving, and then he sent me to another rehab. And the second rehab, this young 20-year-old Army brat comes up to me. He goes, hey, I hear you're a doctor. He goes, yeah. I was like, can you call in prescriptions? I'm like, I can do whatever I want. I call another 3-letter pharmacy. I call in some Hycodan cough syrup and some Tylenol number 3. I figured it was mild, so it was no big deal. We'll party tonight. He climbs the wall of the rehab, picks up the pills, and brings them back, and we partied like it was 1999, even though it was 2006. And we ended up doing all the Hycodan. We're drinking it like crazy. The next morning, they come in with a urine bottle, and I think I'm so smart that I said to them, I had brought tramadol with me, which is a partial opiate. It's very mild. I said, I'll just tell them I did tramadol. So they call me into an office, and they literally are lined up in there, and they're like, do you know why you're here? I'm like, yeah, it's probably because of the tramadol I took. No, you have no idea. We already spoke to the freaking pharmacy where you called the prescriptions in, so we know exactly what you did last night. Your drug tested positive. Stop with the tramadol bullshit. You have now 2 options, because now we're going to call the police again on you, or we're going to make you. That was option A, and option B was, you're going to have to call your father in front of us and tell him exactly what you did and that you're being kicked out and going to another rehab. I said, I'll do option B. So pretty fast. Call my dad in front of this 5-panel of administrators at the rehab. And I said, Dad, I fucked up. And he basically sent me, they kicked me out. My dad wired me $500, and they put me in a cab across the state to another rehab where I completed a 90-day program there. I'm not saying I didn't mess up again, not that saying I got it perfectly, but I made it through at that time. So it was a fascinating 4 months of rehab,
I bet.
including getting kicked out of 2 and getting kicked across the state and doing my thing. But
I mean, this like she said, this disease does not discriminate, and all you were doing was normal addict behavior. We're not thinking with our frontal lobe at that time.
no.
And there is no, it just overpowers everything even though you knew you were, I shouldn't do this, but there's no control mechanism.
No.
We're not able to stop it. That's the powerlessness. Now, a question: do you do a 12-step program? Have you done a 12-step program? How does that look like for you?
The way it works now is since my release from prison, while I was in prison, I sentenced to 14 years and 168 months, because that's what they go by in feds as months. I served 105 of that. While I was in federal prison, I ran an AA group while I was in prison. AA wasn't my drug of choice, but I always felt that AA members have better recovery, better stories, but better tools. And for me, that's what it's about. To this day, I attend Zoom meetings weekly. I follow along with the program. I don't have sponsors or anything, but I use my own techniques. I use mindfulness techniques. I read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. It was given to me as a gift when I came home in the halfway house, and I kind of like really follow that book. And I love the way mindfulness works for me, because it works for me. But I love hearing the stories of strength and hope in the speaker meetings. I do a few big book meetings, but for me, it's about combining those few things. I meet with a psychiatrist quarterly, and I like I said, I have a weekly home group that I attend for Intercare. Intercare is a program for drug and rehab recovery, and I do that also by Zoom in New York every week for the past 5 years. So that's my tools and what works for me. But I find power in helping, in hearing those stories, because it empowers me to do what I do. So that's pretty much how I work my recovery.
You served, what, 8 years then?
8 years and I think 4 months. It was 105 months.
How did that affect your family?
Well, during that time, my wife and kids never visited. I had 2 daughters, never saw them. They didn't want to visit. And I didn't hold that against them. For the most of the last 6.5 years of my sentence, I was in Morgantown, West Virginia. Now, ironically enough, my last name's Morgan. I figured, let's just send him to Morgantown. It's his name. So they sent me there. And it was about an 8-hour drive from New York. So I didn't expect her to come visit. And But the place wasn't bad. I mean, it was like, for a prison, it was like a low to a camp. It was called the Kennedy Center. And basically, it used to be a golf course. A famous story about it was Barbara Walters did a story about this federal prison that was sold by Kennedy's family back in the 80s. And inmates were like playing golf and stuff, and it caused such an uproar that they took away the golf course. They made it more of a higher security because it embarrassed the federal government. So, but that's where I was. And, the place, was amenable to visitors. It wasn't as bad as like a high security federal prison, but, it was still prison. So, but they didn't visit. I only got like one visit a year from my dad. And that was great to see him. So I look forward to that every year. And then, we had prison outreach people. This woman who worked at a local church, she actually visited indigent inmates. And when I say indigent, I don't mean poor. I mean inmates that don't get visits. And she would come once a month for an hour just so I can go to the visiting room and eat snacks. And for you to understand like the importance of that, to have someone that wants to visit you for an hour a month is a beautiful thing. But also just because, you get tired of the crap food after 6.5 years, you're eating nothing on the campus. I'm talking about like it was college. But like you get to eat a snack from a vending machine. And like, just so you understand, that's a big deal for an inmate.
Yeah.
When you're locked away and you don't get visits and you're stuck eating like crap food and grits and farina, which I freaking hate, to get a candy bar. I know it sounds crazy, but it's something I actually look forward to every month. And she provided that for me. And it's just, hopefully it puts into perspective, like what is important to some people. That's why now I am so appreciative and blessed to be even sitting here with you guys today. I mean, I'm just in awe of being able to like share my story and share the platform that I stand for and to talk about these things, because I had nothing. I lost it all. And literally waiting a month to get a candy bar and a vending machine in federal prison. I mean, that's what life was like back then.
Which is wild.
And I would, like you said, I mean, it doesn't know any restrictions. I was a physician practicing, living a decent life, and addiction doesn't know any boundaries. It's not discriminating at all, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a physician's kid, like, I mean, we're usually the bad.
That's like having a pastor's
a
kid.
pastor's son,
Yeah.
a physician's
Yeah.
son. But I'm the only one. I have 3 sisters and a brother, and none of them have the disease at all. None of them got addicted. I had trauma though in my early life, but I can go back as far as I can remember. That I never felt completely comfortable in my skin. My drug of choice happened to be methamphetamines because the first time I used it, I was like, oh my God, this is what's been missing. It was kind of the feeling that you were describing, that when you took the pills and you could go all of a sudden go out and be with friends and family or go to work, and I all of a sudden could study for school. I all of a sudden wasn't hungry in the fat kid anymore. All these things started happening, the good things in the beginning, and it really worked for me.
It's so true. And as I told you,
That's like the chase.
It is
It
the
begins.
chase. And I'm a professor at a medical school now, believe it or not. And the way, I'll tell you how I got the job after.
Yeah.
But the funny thing about what you just said is I'm very close with the students in the sense that they open up to me because they know my story. And I say, so what do people do to get through the tough testing days? And they basically told me prescription meth. And I mean, even to this day, students are taking Adderall like all the time.
Yeah.
And it blows me away, because that's why I'm here. That's why I continue to share my story. And I stand on the platform of teaching medical students and educating them about addiction and how to recognize signs and symptoms of addiction, not only in their patients, but in their colleagues, in each other. They need to know that, and they need to know to abide by the Hippocratic Oath, and above all, do no harm. And you got to help your colleagues, because if they hurt someone else, it's on you. And they need to know that. And that's what I try to educate them on.
Nice.
Did you lose your license?
Yes. So here's what happened. Ironically enough, When I got indicted in 2009, I hired a lawyer, a licensed lawyer, and he said, listen, you're screwed. I said, yeah, but he goes, here's what you do. He goes, voluntarily surrender your license, because the New York State asked for my license. If you voluntarily surrender it, you have a chance to get it back. If I say, screw you, I'm not giving it to you, I'm going to fight to keep it because I know I'm innocent. I knew I was guilty. I screwed up 10 ways till Sunday. I knew I was done. I said, listen, take it. I'm going to mail. I mailed him my license. Therefore, by voluntarily surrendering, when I came home from prison and I called up the Medical State Society of New York, the director of CPH, which is the Committee for Physicians' Health, and they're involved in license restoration, he said, you know what? You have a very smart lawyer because you voluntarily surrendered. Your license is only suspended. It's not revoked.
Wow.
So as of today, as of this day, March 14th, 2025, I have now been in a program for 4.5 years, almost 5 years, that will allow me, and they've already given me their blessing to restore my license. So I'm in the process, and I'll be one of the first after 15 years of not having my license. And to me, it's about redemption, and it's about doing something good with it. And the whole thing about that is just like, even if I always tell myself, even if I don't get it, I've lived a great life, you know, but to say that I got it back and to do something positive with it and powerful with it is unbelievable to me, to take that chance. And I said, I have nothing to lose. It was during COVID where I decided this, you know, I'm just sitting around working at a restaurant as a waiter. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life until I received, I was in the halfway house actually, and my dear friend, Adina Leader, who's a neurologist back in New York and specializes in Parkinson research, she basically called me. I called her and she said, Rich, you got to share your story with the medical students. And I said, you think they'd want to hear? She goes, hell yeah. So she contacted the dean of my medical school where I graduated. I went there, shared my story, 600 students and 40 faculty in the audience. And after 2 hours, there was dead silence, followed by thunderous applause. I never heard anything. I told myself I was going to be honest as I could be. I shared everything from the side effects of what Oxy did to me, from the impotence to the constipation, you name it, I shared it. And there wasn't a dry eye in the house. And I had 30 students come up to me shaking my hand. And then the last student came up to me and said, she was limping, and she said, Dr. Morgan, after hearing your story, you can see I just had ankle surgery. I'm going home to throw out my bottle of opiates. And I said, I came here today for you because you just shared that with me. You're the reason I came here. Nothing else matters, because if I made a difference in your life, then this entire talk was worth it. That one person made all the difference. And then after all that, one of the faculty members looks over at the dean and says, if you don't fucking hire this guy, you're crazy. And like a year later, they hired me. I got a part-time job at my medical school, and I started to share my story every year, and I did it the following year. And it was just a part-time job, but after I shared it the second time, during COVID, I was working as a waiter in a restaurant. I couldn't get a job. I get a call in May of 2020. If you remember, people were dying like crazy, like 700-800 people a day in New York. And I basically said, she said, Rich, she goes, I just want you to know a colleague of mine just committed suicide at Columbia Medical Center. She was struggling with pills and alcohol, and it made me realize the fragility of life. And she goes, I want you to come on board, and I'm offering you a full-time job. I dropped the phone. I started to cry. I mean, I'm like 3 years out of federal prison, being offered a full-time professor job at my medical school. And then, she told me how much, and I'm like, I mean, compared to a restaurant, I was like, thank God. And I just thanked her to this day. That's why when I go to work now every day, it's such a blessing. And I appreciate every single moment I get to go to work. And the students feed off that. They see that. I have a different type of appreciation. Every faculty member I have is great, but I'm coming from such a unique perspective of what I've been through. And it shines and it comes through and it emanates in my personality and my positivity now with the students, because I really appreciate every day that life has to offer.
Yeah, because you know now what it was like, everything ripped from you.
Everything was taken. I had nothing. I lost my family, my job, my career, my freedom.
Yeah.
You name it, I had nothing. No family for
License.
9 years. Nothing. License, I lost my license. And now, one thing, two things is the reason that I'm here today. I chose to be honest, and I chose to ask for help. I tell everyone never be afraid to ask for help. It's so important. You cannot do it alone. And I hear phone calls to people asking for help and text messages. And it's like, it's so good that people know that you have a voice. And that's why I put myself out there, because I feel through my story, which is somewhat unique, but at the same time, it's not. We all have our own unique truths. And it's just, I want people to know that it can happen to me. It could happen to anyone. I don't have to be homeless. I don't have to be someone who's a streetwalker. I'm a physician. I came from an upper middle class Jewish family in Long Island, and I did the same crime that anyone else could have done, been put in the circumstances. Doesn't matter my background.
Yeah.
But then the redemption is everything. So it's like, yes, you have, and yes, you are one of the fellow soldiers that takes to dark places, but you hung in there and stayed with it.
Exactly.
I'm really glad that that you have chose to, we call it around here, recover out loud, because the 12-step programs, it's, they have the spirit of anonymity, which I completely respect, because I am a member of one of those programs. But when I sit here on this platform, I recover out loud, because if people don't know that help is available, and if people don't know what addiction looks like, it looks like me, it looks like you, it looks like Shane and Natalie. They don't know. Society doesn't know. And then we keep the stigma going that addiction is the homeless people out there. Mine brought me to homelessness, not the kind of shopping carts, but the kind of insanity where I was, trying to hustle drugs on the street, to get a motel room, to stealing cars, to doing whatever I had to do to survive. But the redemption that Natalie just talked about, like, you may end up getting your medical license back, which, I pray to God that you do, because to be honest with you, you deserve it more than some of the people that currently have their license.
I mean, you are getting it back, right? That's the whole kind of process at the moment.
There's never a guarantee.
Okay.
The way it works, the legal phrases is you have a very good chance. I've done put it this way, Natalie, I've done everything asked of me. I was asked to sign a 5-year contract of abstinence where I get drug tested every week. I've been drug tested 4 times a month for the past 4.5 years, all clean. I've been asked to meet with a psychiatrist quarterly, which I've done. I've attended weekly meetings. I've done that. Anything, I have a work site monitor, someone that monitors me at work and meets with me quarterly to talk about my progress. How am I feeling? I've done everything asked of me. By doing that, what happens is every state society, every state has an advocacy group for medical professionals. In New York, it's called CPH. In Florida, it's called something else, PRN, I believe, Physician Recovery Network.
Yeah.
But in New York, Committee for Physicians' Health advocates for you. You sign that 5-year contract and you abide by their rules. They write you a letter. They advocate for you. When you go to the medical board, Dr. Morgan has done everything we've asked. We support him fully in getting his license back. I've got colleagues that I work with, some, pretty powerful in the medical world. I do addiction medicine paddles. I've done several on Long Island, several with other residency programs, psychiatry programs. I've done some not national like this, but I've done a lot of Northeast podcasts for medical schools to share my story and platform. And that's what I really want to continue to do. I want to be an agent of change for medical students so that I'm teaching the future doctors of America. I need to prepare them that they're being given an awesome power and responsibility that's being bestowed upon them. And it's a privilege, not a right. And they need to remember that. And I tell them, I was you 25 years ago. I thought I had it. And then I went to freaking federal prison, lost everything.
For 8 years, by the way.
For 8 years, 4 months, I was gone. Lost my freedom.
And I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, crimes I've committed just seem heinous compared to you writing a couple prescriptions. And I've done a total of 3 years behind bars, and I'm just like,
but not consistent, but not a solid 3, like a solid 8.
Yeah, yours was a solid 8.
So Chad, I got sentenced to 14 years, but what happens is, it's funny. Every time whenever I met someone in prison and they ask me how much time you got, I go 14 years. They, who the hell did you kill?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what everyone says. Hey, listen, Chad, when I go big, I go big.
Yeah.
I commit a crime, I go all the way.
Yeah.
It's, I don't do these
And
petty things.
but the thing is you stacked up federal crimes where
That's the way to do it.
Yeah, that is not the way to do it, ladies and gentlemen.
I know.
State crimes,
course.
you get a lot lot less time. No, but that's not funny either, at all. I've never actually committed I have never been arrested sober. Like, I haven't done something that put my life in jeopardy where I was going to go to jail since I got clean and sober.
Shocker.
Like, we don't do that stuff, which makes me believe that you and I are not criminals. We're drug addicts.
Absolutely. And the funny thing is, I was clean and sober for 8 months after. I got arrested while I was clean and sober. The reason I got arrested, and I've shared this openly, was because I was on supervised release. And one of the things that apparently was passed by the government was a Methamphetamine Control Act, where you were no longer allowed to purchase Sudafed. And Sudafed was used as a major component of methamphetamine, as you know.
Yeah.
So even though I didn't do another pill opiate per se, I started to purchase Sudafed because I had a pill comfort thing. It was a comfort thing, like I shared with you earlier, just having it. And even though it wasn't giving me that same high, I figured by popping 12 or 14 of them, it would give me a little bit of a push. And that's what I was doing. But in order to maintain that habit, you had to buy a bunch of blister packs because they came in like 12 in a thing, and I do a whole freaking blister of them.
Wow.
What happened was I was red flagged to Albany, and then New York State, they contacted the DA, and they literally, I'm showering one morning, March 22nd. Actually, next week it's going to be 16 years. I was showering in the morning, and my wife knocks on the bathroom door, and she goes, "Rich, there's 2 federal marshals here to arrest you." I said, "What the what?" She goes, "Yeah," and she starts crying, opens the door, and I'm standing there in a bathrobe, and the 2 agents are at the door, like, "We're here to arrest you, right?" I was like, "No." "Can I go change?" She goes, "No, but your wife can go bring you your clothes." So she made me change, and he made me get dressed right in front of him. He goes, "Well, we don't have to pad you down." I'm like, "That's really not funny." And then he goes, and then my 1.5-year-old daughter's standing there, and I go, "Can I say goodbye to my daughter?" He goes, "Yeah." I kissed my daughter goodbye, and that was my last day of freedom for 8 years and 4 months. And it was because of the Sudafed that I was taking.
Wow.
They remanded me into custody because I was popping, and the maximum amount of Sudafed was 3 grams a month. I purchased like 6 grams in like 3 months each month. So I was so far above and beyond. I didn't realize I was so out of touch with reality. I was purchasing amounts that they thought I was using it to make meth, ironically enough. I said I wouldn't see meth if it hit me in the face. I never did meth in my life. I've done plenty of things. Pills, I'm all over it. Doesn't matter. I never did meth. And I didn't even know what it was. So for them to accuse me of that, and then the feds got so pissed, they literally, instead of coming to court for sentencing in a 3-piece suit, I came in an orange jumpsuit, and I was given, I could have gotten 20, and the judge felt like 14 years is good for you. And I almost passed out. My sister had to catch me, and that was it. And I was done. And that was the start of the next almost 9 years of my life.
So when did you get out? What year did you get out?
April 11, 2017. My dad drove to Morgantown, West Virginia, picked me up, and drove me to Brooklyn in the halfway house, about 8 hours each way. And he dropped me off there, and that was where I checked in, and I spent the next 8 months of my life. And then I started to slowly piece things together, figure out what I want to do. And it was a long process. I had to rebuild a family I thought I hadn't have. My wife and I never got back together. We're now not together. I moved on, have a beautiful girlfriend. And basically, it's life's different, so it's a long process, but it did not happen right away.
How's your relationship with your daughter?
2 daughters.
2 daughters.
Yeah. So I hadn't seen them in all that time. There was some resentment. Obviously, the first moment we saw each other was like a Hallmark movie. She picked me up at the train station when I came in. I had a really positive, crying reunion with them. But obviously, there was resentment. Believe it or not, my older daughter, my kids are 21 now and 18. One just graduated college. I'm going to her graduation next month.
Nice.
And then the other one just started college in Delaware. And the relationship has always been an evolution. We've gotten much closer. I've had to earn their appreciation. Yeah. But, ironically enough, and this is a sore subject, but it always upset me, my kid's mom refused to tell them where I was. She basically, they had no idea I was in prison. She lied to them for 9 years. And she told them that I was working in West Virginia. And I said, why would they believe that? They believe what I tell them. So my kids, even to this day, don't know the full truth. And I out of respect for her and the fact that, you know, she was their mom and had to live with them all those years, I haven't taken that step to really have that conversation, but now it's coming out here. So I'm sure, and that's fine with me because it needs to come out. What I'm doing is bigger than me. What I'm doing is for the people suffering out there. And if it has to open up doors for me to continue to try to be honest, I am all for it. So yeah, my kid's relationship has been powerful. I'm so excited to see her graduate. You know, growing up Jewish, I was able to come home and have my youngest daughter bat mitzvahed and help finance that with my restaurant job. And that was a blessing. And, you know, it's been great to see them grow and evolve. And yeah, I missed almost 8+ years of their life, but you know, I can't sit there and wallow in misery and saying I didn't see you for that time. We're going to start now and we're going to make up for lost time. And that's just what I've done.
I mean, it's a story of addiction, man. And, you know, I today have a podcast with my daughter called Spit and Image because, you know, she's the reason why I got sober, but then 9 years into her life, I relapsed. And then especially really bad during the most important years of her life. So I have a lot of, you know, guilt and shame behind that. And I think that I caused her, you know, trauma and, you know, at least pushed her into an early addiction of her own, which ended up, you know, it all ends up being a beautiful thing, though, when we just let go and let God be in charge. You know, this podcast is because she found the love of her life dead from fentanyl. And, you know, we just wanted to start offering people hope and be the voice for the people who have lost their lives to this horrible, you know, crisis. You know, the fentanyl crisis is caused from the opioid epidemic that started in the early 2000s. And it's just a progression of that because what ended up happening, and I've worked in treatment since 2001, so I've watched this whole thing progress. The opioid crisis, the oxys turned into heroin, and now heroin has turned into fentanyl because it's cheaper, more powerful, cuter. It's not as scary as heroin. I mean, now heroin on the East Coast is less scary than heroin on the West Coast. Ours on the West Coast is black tar. It literally looks like tar. You have to put it in a spoon, heat it up, or smoke it on foil, and then inject it. Now the heroin on the East Coast, it's a little brownish, whitish powder. Looks a little bit more like cocaine, a little bit less scary. But fentanyl comes in a really cute pill that's not scary at all.
Yeah, it's amazing. You know, when I was going through my addiction in the early 2000s, like you said, when the evolution of the opiates really took off after Purdue released OxyContin, fentanyl only existed in patch form, as we were talking about. And I had Duragesic, and when I couldn't go, I was worried. I told you about the dope sick. I would literally prescribe. I'd find a way to get patches, and I'd take 75 microgram patches and put 3 on each arm. I literally have like 400 micrograms of fentanyl coursing through my veins over 72 hours. But the scary thing is that you don't think about, because addicts don't think. We basically, it's like, whoa, I just turned on the faucet, but you can't shut that off. Yeah. It's only going to shut off by itself in 3 days. So it's like you're going on a roller coaster and you're just going downhill for like 3 days until it starts to wean off. It's scary. But, you know, when I came home and started seeing all these, I missed so much when I was away. And one of the things is, you know, the advent of all the new forms of fentanyl that are now on the market. And the thing that's scary, like you were just mentioning, Chad, was how it's been used to be laced in other drugs. And people unbeknownst to them were taking it and then dying from overdoses and things like that. And it's just really scary about the amount of death and mortality. It's just propelled the numbers in drug-related deaths, especially opiates.
It's crazy to me because the CDC, according to the CDC, the number one cause of death for people 18 to 45 years old is fentanyl poisoning.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, that's just like unacceptable to me.
beyond unacceptable, and it's scary. I mean, to think that those numbers are that high for fentanyl, it even takes me, because the number one cause of death was always MVA, motor vehicle accident.
Yeah.
More people now, like you said, die from drug overdoses than motor vehicles. So when I came home in 2017, I would talk about the CDC numbers. And one of the things was, I think the numbers were right around 48 to 50,000. And by the time COVID hit, we were losing 100,000 plus a year.
Yeah.
A year
Yeah.
in opiate deaths.
Yeah.
So it really has, the landscape changed. And a lot of it had to do with the whole isolation, the home, the depressions, the
sure.
psychiatric illnesses that were becoming more,
The isolation,
Yeah.
the social media, like there's so many positives, pros and cons to social media, and I absolutely love it because it's a great tool if you're able to use it in a responsible way. But it also can be a detriment, especially to the youth, because it's casts all of a sudden at an early age when their brains aren't even fully developed this like fear of missing out, this fear of like really feeling alone and not a part of, or very insecure, which I mean all of us at this table were very insecure when we were younger, and that's maybe because we have the addiction gene, or it's just that time period and that time frame of being a kid in adolescence and growing into who you are and who you become and what you want to be, your identity. We're all figuring it out at that age, and then to like magnify it on a highlight reel, because that's what like it is, you know, you're putting your best self out, or things that are going to make you look a certain way. And so to be that young is very concerning, especially with the amount of suicides that are happening with 16, 17, 14, 15-year-olds is mind-boggling to me.
It's so true, and that's the reason why I do this, and that's the reason why I'm trying to be that agent of change for medical students, to make them realize not only how they can help themselves and their colleagues, but to be better physicians for their patients.
Yeah.
And to realize, you know, when I went to school, psychiatry was not a popular field. I mean, they were paying people to go into psych residencies. No one wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Since COVID, now everyone could do telemedicine and talk psychiatry and do all these things. It's so hard to get in. It's literally one of the hardest residencies to get into now, because I see like the inside administrative aspect of how residencies work now from where I teach. And it's just fascinating to me, the number of people that are really interested in trying to help others. And that's why I think having this platform for me to be able to like share with them, and a lot of them want to go into addiction medicine now. Some of them have told me because of hearing my story. It's really, I love having that ability to mold them like that. And if it does something positive, it's worth it.
Well, what's cool about addiction medicine is it's a board now too, huh?
Oh yeah, it's a board. It's definitely a board.
It wasn't a board when I first got into this whole, industry, but ASAM's been around for quite a while, and that's the stuff that they've done. The studies has really progressed over the last 20 years since I've worked in this industry, and treatment in itself has gotten so much better.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you're right. I mean, you could back when I went to school, you could take a course like for 3 months, and get a piece of paper that says you can now certify in addiction medicine. Yeah. So, and listen, psychiatrists can specialize in anything they want. And if they choose that, then, they have that option now to do the board aspect. But it also opens up to, family practitioners and internal medicine doctors and those types of people, if they want, they can take, an extra course or do a kind of a board certification in that regard. So it's not just psychiatry. There's other avenues to delve into that. And there's a lot of options out there. So I think it's great that they really expounded into that area.
I love it. I think it's super important, especially you being a doctor, because the severity of the disease is obviously prevalent, right? So like doctors also need to explain to that patient that is either getting surgery or whatever it is, the highly addictive
consequences
of the pills that they're prescribing, because there's been a lot of people that I have just like sat in my own meetings that were totally fine to their in their earlier years, and they ended up going through a surgery or some type of issue, and all of a sudden they did not know the severity of the prescription pill that they were prescribed from their doctor, and then fast forward, they're literally like full blown chasing to get more prescriptions.
And it's funny you bring that up, because when I got arrested, doctors weren't just addicted like me, but what happened was they were still writing tons of prescriptions and doing it for a specific profit. There was the story about the pain clinics in Florida where the two guys that ran it weren't doctors, got arrested and ended up doing
Those
15
two brothers, one's 2 and 20, one's out because one family member, one guy died.
Yeah, it was called American Pain. I read the book in federal prison, and that book really affected me because it was like, there are people that were doing it for a monetary profit. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there minimizing and saying, I was just an addict. I was just doing it for pills because I wanted the money to feed my habit.
Yeah.
But like you said perfectly, like about doctors writing all these pills, every month my mom would send me, while I was away, she would send me all these articles of doctors getting arrested. And there was going on, doctors were getting conspiracy charges every freaking week. And what was scary was, I met 30 doctors in prison, maybe more, and I never met someone with a greater sentence than me. That's why I was always amazed. Like, what did I do? Like, I'm not saying I didn't deserve time, but I was facing 20-year sentence. I ended up getting 14 and served 8+. But the fact is, I'm the most time I ever saw one doctor get was 7 years, and it was the doctor who wrote the prescriptions for that wrestler that died. And if you remember, it was back in the 90s. There was a wrestler in Florida who he wrote prescriptions for steroids, anabolics, and he ended up killing his wife, his child, and then he killed himself.
Yeah.
So I met the doctor in prison that was involved in that, and they threw the book at him because they said he was the reason the guy ended up killing his family.
He was a good-looking guy. The
Yeah,
wrestler.
they have a show. I mean, sorry, not
I
a
forget
show,
his name,
but
but he
like,
had a good name.
Good-looking
family.
very.
What kind of
the doctor?
wrestling,
No, the guy,
the wrestler.
The wrestler.
Yeah, it was a beautiful family.
Beautiful family.
But the doctor
I think that one was like so many pillars to that. The
He was
doctor,
from
There were.
Montreal.
he
He
had
was from
CT.
Montreal or something. It was a French Canadian, I think.
What, the
No.
doctor?
No,
No.
the wrestler.
No, the doctor. Yeah. I don't know.
think so.
I don't remember his name. I mean, I'm sure people will Google it now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bugging me that I don't know.
But the fact is, the doctor I met, and nice guy, listen, I saw the good in everyone when I was away because we were all committed crimes, but inside, a lot of people didn't own their crimes. So that's why, because I took that path to admit, to take ownership for my deeds, that was one of the reasons when I came home, I got asked to go on Dr. Oz because they needed someone when he started talking about the opiate epidemic, and then I went on a show and they did a whole hour with me because I was willing to admit what I did, and they didn't have anyone willing to do that. So that was
Chris Bonet.
Yeah, Bonet. That's how
That's
I thought it was
it,
French. That's why I thought it was French. Bonet. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That was like that other actress girl, something Bonet.
Yeah.
Lisa Bonet.
Lisa Bonet.
She was on the Cosby Show.
Yeah.
she was.
Yeah.
Cosby Show. She was the
Beautiful.
oldest sister. I remember her.
So
The Cosby Show, man, that was some good times back then. Bill Cosby was a doctor on that show. Dr.
He was an obstetrician.
Huxtable?
Yeah,
He was
Huxtable.
OBGYN.
a complete creep.
What?
Yeah.
In real life or on the show?
Not on the show.
Not on the show.
In real life.
Yeah.
That's where I, that's where I just shut up after this because, I don't get into the Me Too stuff because too much controversy.
No, I mean, well, his is not that much controversy. It's like it was fact that came out. Like he was literally drugging women, and then like while they're under, then he would be fondling, doing whatever, God knows what. So that's disgusting. So there's that one.
It's
Is
like
like
the Harvey Weinstein thing.
fuck, totally.
Harvey Weinstein.
I mean,
Like, dude,
is he still in
dirtbag.
prison?
Yeah. but
Cosby's
he's-
out.
But you know what
Cosby-
about the Harvey
yeah,
Weinstein
alive?
thing?
Yeah,
Shame on
alive.
all the agents that are in top Hollywood, WME, CAA. Those motherfuckers knew that they were sending their little damsels in distress in there for a casting call into like a predator's arms, basically.
100%.
So there's no way, and I don't care who they are, there's no way that nobody knew what was going on.
Everyone
Get out of
knew.
here.
I mean, if we're here, can we just talk about Diddy then? Since we're right here. Because Diddy is the most recent
Debacle.
debacle out there.
Yeah.
And I feel like his might be the worst. And I'm not so sure, we do a lot of hiding in America with these types of people and what's really going on. Don't get me into my conspiracy theory that Diddy is a
Oh, God.
CIA
Don't go
asset.
there.
I'll stop right there.
Yeah.
But those bottles of what was it?
Oh yeah, baby oil.
Baby oil. I don't believe that was baby oil. I believe
No.
that was GHB.
Yeah, for sure.
Really?
Agree.
Inside of
Yeah.
baby oils.
Totally.
It was hundreds
I'm
and
with you.
thousands
Yeah.
of bottles of
For sure.
GHB.
So what do you do with GHB? Do you drink
Basically,
it?
Yeah, drink it.
yeah, it's
What
a
is
date
it?
rape
Date
drug.
rape drug.
I've heard of it, but in baby oil, what is it? Were they drinking it?
No, they were
Or-
just those bottles of baby oil were cleaned out, and it was
And they put 'em
all,
on their
all
skin. Oh.
GHB.
Yeah,
That's me. That's crazy.
yeah, real crazy, like crazy shit.
I
goes
mean,
down.
that fool's not getting out. And
Yeah.
because I think, like, my conspiracy theory is he's a CIA asset. They're done with him, and he's done. He's done. Life's done for him.
Oh yeah. I was in the same prison he was in. That he's there now in Red Hook, Brooklyn, at the MDC, and I spent 6 weeks there. Listen, it's not the best place in the world, but his lawyer was making it out to seem like like it was hell on earth. I mean, it was bad, but it was, I mean, I've been to worse places. But then again, I was a federal inmate. And federal inmates, it's one of those places where you're mixed in also with well, not there. It's all federal, but I was in county jail, and federal inmates are treated differently than county inmates. You're actually considered like, whoa, we don't want to mess with him. He's a federal criminal.
Yeah.
So you have a little bit of cachet inside. If you want to talk about hierarchies, whether it be of needs or of inmates, like federal inmates were considered a different level. So
That other guy is there with Diddy right now too.
Which one?
The guy that did the crypto scam.
Oh right.
The
Yep.
young-
bank something.
Bankman. He was just on. He did an illegal interview with Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, he did. He did a phone call pod. It was like looking at a podcast. I'm like, how did he get a camera in there?
It was an iPhone, and
But how did he get a camera? You're not allowed to bring iPhones in there.
no, I
Like,
know they can get them though. I mean, it might not have been an iPhone, but it was
No,
definitely.
you're right, because I saw a video of him talking to
talking to-
Tucker.
Yeah, he got in a lot of trouble for that because I think he got in all the
Well,
trouble.
the officers, the COs are going to get in trouble.
Somebody's heads are rolling. Somebody got in.
Like when I heard Jeffrey Epstein hung himself, I could tell you right now,
Oh,
it
yeah,
was in the
no, I
same
didn't.
place. I could tell you right now, I mean,
It's not possible.
No way.
it's possible, but people look the other way. I mean, I did Suicide Watch while I was inside. I did it for over 2 years. And when you do it, you're as an inmate, you're in a one-on-one cell where you're in a waiting room and you're watching them, and you have to fill out a log every 15 minutes saying he's asleep, he's nothing.
No, for sure. That's like a Q15.
It's such a specific. They get inmates to do the Suicide Watch, and then the officers are in the next room, but they're like sleeping or doing whatever. But there's such a system of checks and balances.
Yes.
There's no way.
No way.
Exactly. You know what I
No
mean?
way.
So they stepped aside. They knew what they were doing. They left him the noose, and he did what he wanted with it. So I can tell you that they're not allowed blankets. You're not allowed anything in those rooms. Anything that you can use to hurt yourself, like a pillowcase.
It's literally just, honestly, it's just like a detox or residential facility, because you're literally, when you're first coming in, you're checking on them, and you have to document everything of like where they're
you have
at,
to
how they're
document.
like all of the things,
Like-
and like every 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And like you're removed anything that is potentially of harm. So any
100%.
types of, especially on a suicide potential, you're not, you might not even have shoelaces in any of your shoes.
Again, CIA asset. They said you can either do it yourself, or
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you.
we'll have it done.
We're going on another tangent.
Yeah.
But congratulations to you, and continue to share your story, because for individuals being able to hear not only from the lengths you've gone to with your addiction, but the fact that you are were a doctor at the time, a licensed physician, and then now to see the redemption of serving the time, doing all of the things required, and having the patience, but staying with it to then regain your life, which is what you're doing, and you're spreading all of like hope to other medical individuals that are going into that field, which is incredibly important. And it's just a testament of you having a strong faith to keep pressing on that it's going to get better.
And it's one addict at a time.
Yeah.
Because I saw the difference in that one addict.
Yep.
It made me motivated
Yep.
to do it every time. Even if
Totally.
I speak to 1,000 people,
100%.
if I make a difference in one person, it was worth it. Like, to me, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just a small agent of change hoping to make a difference. And if I can influence a whole group of medical students, we have a huge matriculating class, 300 a year.
Yeah.
That's that many, even if it's 10%, that's 30 doctors
Yeah.
a year that I'm making a
Incredible.
difference in their education.
And it needs to be.
Yeah, 100%.
So, good for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you so
Really,
much.
really
Thank you for
awesome.
having me. It's
Absolutely.
been a pleasure.
Yes.
And I really appreciate, coming out here from New York. It was worth it to meet all of you. And it's just a real pleasure to have another platform to share this story of strength and hope.
Yeah,
Love it.
I'm looking forward to this one getting out to
Me
the
too.
airways.
Me
'cause,
too.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
I like that fact that you're a physician
Me too.
who got addicted, did some time. This is
Did a
good
ton of
freaking
time.
Story, yeah.
It's a
Great
goddamn
story,
almost
man.
decade. Like that can break people, So the fact that you were able to get out and continue to like slowly put your life back together, and then potentially, I mean, not only you're a professor, right?
Yeah.
You're like that's insane. You're about to hopefully, God willing, get your license back.
Yeah.
Like that's stuff that you don't hear of, but to me, I'm used to hearing the promises come true.
And
Because
that's the best
it's
part.
Amazing.
There's no better promise than that. And to me, the promises of getting my license back pales in comparison to the promises of changing the life of an addict for the better.
Yeah.
And that's really what this is about to me. And if the license happens, wonderful. If it doesn't, I'm going to still wake up blessed every day that I'm here, being able to share my story and make a difference.
Absolutely. Love it. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, guys.